My name is Rebecca and I'm the founder of Lone Design Club, and we're here today on the final day of our July South Molton Street pop-up store in London, and we're joined by Alison Fern.
Hello.
Who is an incredible jewellery designer and is here to tell us a little bit more about her brand. So let's get stuck in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
How you got into to designing jewellery.
Okay, so I have worked in the art world for many years and always did designing jewellery, making clothes on the side, and kind of reinvented myself as a jewellery designer based on a hobby that I kind of developed. And I've been working with a number of online platforms, and this is my first opportunity to do kind of a long-term pop-up in person, so it's particularly exciting.
Okay, let's rewind a little bit. So
Okay.
your background is in the art world.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow, okay, tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so I did a history of art degree whilst always creating, always making clothes for me, always making clothes for my friends, and then pursued my history of art career by working for Tate for 10 years. Again,
Wow.
made pieces of jewellery, took them into work, wore them into work, sold them to colleagues, and never really thought of it as something to pursue as a kind of career. So when I gave that up, I then carried on my hobby but started to think a bit more seriously about how I could make it into a business.
And when you were at Tate, what was your role? What were you doing?
So I managed the picture library. So we used to license all the paintings. We used to work with the artists and make sure they were licensed properly. So just basically managing the sort of intellectual property.
And do you feel like that has played a large role in inspiring?
Yeah, it was
create?
definitely a very creative environment to be in, with lots of dynamic people, and obviously all the exhibitions sort of absorbing the creativity there definitely played a part in wanting to pursue something more hands-on creative myself, for sure.
Amazing. And on the note of inspiration, where do you get that from? What and who or where inspires you?
Yeah, I think still kind of the art world. I definitely need to be around creative places, so definitely sort of fashion. I definitely tap into some fashion trends. I grew up by the seaside, so I'm definitely still inspired by, it just feels like a real mix of kind of everything I've done and everywhere I've been, and definitely the kind of nature background with the urban experience that I'm now having by living in London.
Interesting.
Yes.
Great.
So
when did you make that decision to take Alison Fern Jewellery, full time
into a brand?
A
couple of years ago, and I kind of spent a long time exploring what my brand would look like, kind of coming up with lots of ideas and attending markets and fairs while it was still a bit of a hobby, and just kind of getting inspiration in terms of what would sell and what might not sell, and just really exploring what I wanted my brand to look like. And then a sort of pivotal moment was organising a model shoot, because then you really get to see what your pieces look photographed on a kind of a model, and how that might be presented, how you might present it to the public, how you might really launch your brand. So that was a sort of defining moment, really.
Interesting. So you launched officially 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
And then how have you, so the past 2 or 3 years, what has that journey looked like for you in detail of building that brand?
Yeah, so I think it still feels quite early, it still feels quite experimental. It was launching my website sort of, and slowly trying to explore other ways of selling, because I think there's so many ways you can take a small business, and you've got to definitely explore who your customer is, and it doesn't have to be one type of customer. You can have, and what kind of people like your designs and who appreciate your designs, but also how you want to structure your business, because I think lots of people have said to me, because I hand make every piece, lots of people have kind of said, oh, that's, you can't do that forever, you want to grow, but that is really important, because I named the brand after me. It's very important that I still hand make everything, and that it has that kind of handmade, small feeling. Everything's limited quantities, and I want to keep it like that, because that's what made me, because I enjoy making things and knowing that someone's wearing something that I have made.
Yeah.
And that feels really core to the business.
So on that note of how you sell and how you get to market, what are you, do you have stockists, or what kind of other ways do you connect online with your customers?
I haven't gone down the wholesale route. That's something I haven't really thought about at the moment. It is just straight to the consumer.
Yeah.
And I do work with a number of online platforms. So I sell a certain type of jewellery. I sell quite well through Not on the High Street. And I have been doing some PR, which obviously brings people straight to your website. And then there's a few other online platforms I sell through. And I've also experimented with organising my own pop-up shops, which I've just done on my own, which is where I tapped into the idea of working with the Lone Design Club, because it is quite a lot of pressure when you do a pop-up shop on your own for your own brand. So this has been really exciting, sort of piecing together something where you're sharing an experience, and the customer can look at your jewellery with an item of clothing, with a bag, and that's been really good experience.
Okay, that's good. So have we made your life easier?
Yes, definitely. In terms of, again, for me, not going down the wholesale route, it's been really nice to be here and meet the customer face to face. Yeah. And like I say, to be able to look at my jewellery in the context of other designers, and also kind of, I think just absorbing creative ideas from other designers. So from a personal point of view, that's been really interesting, but also to meet the customer, because a lot of my sales are online. So a lot of it is trying to find out details about the customer through their online sale. So it has been really great, sort of have a bit longer than just an evening or a day with my own pop-ups to actually get to know the customer. Yeah, so that's been really, really good.
Interesting. Please, it's really loud. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your manufacturing, where are the materials from?
Yes.
And how does that process work? Because you hand make a lot of them, but I guess,
it's kind of, I always sort of say it's a mixture of handmade and handcrafted, because I don't have a jeweller's background, so I don't literally get a piece of silver, a sheet of silver, and make things from that. I come up with ideas and designs, and then I try and find the pieces to match my designs. Okay. So, and I did a lot of time researching suppliers, try very much to keep to a British supplier, but obviously given that we don't have silver or gold in this country, or pearl farms, they obviously get things from elsewhere, and sometimes, I have got an American supplier as well that I use, but it's also nice to have that relationship where you get most of your pieces from particular suppliers that you also, so I only have 2 or 3 that I work with. Okay. And one of my main suppliers is based in the UK, which is really important. Yeah. And because I make things in limited quantities, obviously I can order things as and when, which keeps it small and no waste. Yeah. You're not left with a huge amount of stock. So that's also a really important part of the business, and then the customer knows that they're getting something that isn't going to be seen everywhere and worn everywhere, so it keeps that kind of unique edge to it. Definitely.
So then I guess sustainability and ethics are obviously extremely important to what you're doing. Yes. How important are they? Is there anything particular about your business, apart from the kind of limited editions, low quantities, minimising waste? Is there anything in that you feel is really intrinsic to the way you work or what you're building in your company?
I think it is probably, again, talking about the handmade quality, the fact that I'm only buying what I need, I'm not producing a huge amount of waste. I think that is probably really important, and buying to last as well. I think obviously producing things ethically is really important, but I also think again, something that has always been true to me as a consumer myself, for 20 years or however long I've been buying my own clothes, it's always been important to recycle things and buy to last. Yeah. So I think even though now there's obviously a lot of awareness about producing things ethically, and that is really, really important, absolutely. I think you also, something that should always be there is kind of buy something when it's special and buy something to last, and you don't need to consume new things all the time. And my jewellery is made from kind of quality materials that aren't really going to date, and that's why I use a lot of gold fill, because that's kind of effectively like using real gold, which it doesn't degrade. So I think it's just, as well as kind of being aware of the production of these pieces of gold, it's also about producing something that people can wear for years.
Okay, cool. So in terms of, so for a customer that's bought one of your pieces or is thinking about buying one of your pieces, what would you say to them? Is there anything small that you feel, if a customer comes into the pop-up store and gets to meet you, is there any little kind of tidbit of information that you like them to leave with? Or
well, I think probably my best example is that I actually have a customer coming back today who I met at the closing party.
Amazing.
Who was kind of chatting to me about she has a real issue with allergies, and I said, well, I can make those earrings, I can swap that material, it doesn't have to be gold plated sterling silver, I can make those for you in gold fill, because she was talking about an allergy, and that's something that I offer quite a lot. People often come to me and say, actually I really like that, but could I change that fitting? And I think because everything's sort of handcrafted, that I can make tweaks for you, because it's not mass produced. It's not I'm not having to send something to a factory, and I can literally just tweak a design to suit you. And I think that's something that is really important, that it is quite personal. And yes, I have designed these pieces, but I'm not going to be crushed if you say to me, actually I would much rather swap that ear fitting around. It's a really nice thing to make sure that you can make something really unique to the customer's taste, and I think that's hopefully a sort of an edge that I might have over.
Amazing.
So
that's lovely. Okay, and then last question, for any budding designers out there that are thinking of starting their own business or in early stages, any advice that you would like to share?
Probably research, and make sure you research. You don't have to research beforehand necessarily, but just take it slow and make sure you learn as much as you go along. But also don't give up. I think there's so many instances in which I could have been crushed by small obstacles, and I think just keep your vision of why you started it and why you're doing it, and that you can't appeal to everybody, not everything is going to work for you, and just I think you have to be really passionate about why you're doing it and what you're doing it for, because obviously there's a huge amount of competition and you will get knockbacks. So I think it's about really just keeping going and staying true to what you believe in, really.
Okay, that's a great last piece of advice. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.